Hi, everyone, and welcome to Talk 57. Now, I thought this week it might be interesting just to look back on how our lives and the world has changed since COVID came into our lives all that long, long time ago in March 2020. It was a hard time. And it was a big shock to all of us. People were, if you like, pushed away from and forbidden to go to things like the pubs, the restaurants, the gyms, the shops, all those kind of things. We were pushed towards things like Zoom calls and online quizzes and all those kind of things, and perhaps even Netflix binges. But life has changed in other ways too, and it's not all negative. We're very good at saying, "Oh, well, wasn't this awful? This was terrible. Wasn't it absolutely criminal the way we had to do this or couldn't do that?" But there have been some positive things that might not have looked positive initially, but if we think about it, they may affect our lives long term for the better. So let's look first of all at something like shopping. Now, all of a sudden, we weren't allowed to go to the shops. Do you remember all the panic buying and everything at the beginning? We could only go to the supermarkets. People were just sweeping everything off the shelves. And it gradually calmed down. And it's reckoned that the demise, if you like, of the traditional high street shopping was hastened. So it was there already. We were beginning to see that trend where the high streets were starting to die. But with the if you like, the onset of COVID and all the restrictions, that certainly sped up. But is it all really going to be awful? We're told that the city centres will be regenerated perhaps as something quite different. It could be that offices and shops and things may be changed into accommodation. People might start to live in the city centre. We all went online and started to order all our shopping online. It was delivered to our home. That was necessary, and we all started to learn how to do that. But a lot of the small businesses actually started to do really well in that we were shopping locally where we could. Once we were allowed to go into the shops, and we were supporting our local shopkeepers and businesses, things like the local restaurants and things. What they did was adapt to do takeaways and deliveries, things like that. I know certainly one of the lovely shops that's up at the avenue here where I live. It's a sort of gift and home shop. They really developed their website and they're still developing it. And the fact that many of us locally were ordering from them was great because it was literally somebody was coming to your door that you knew to deliver some of the shopping. And there was a lovely feeling of, if you like, we were all helping each other. And that perhaps is the way things are going to go. So it could be to our benefit. It isn't necessarily all doom and gloom. With work, so many people had to work from home. I know sadly a lot of people lost jobs, but I know I've quoted my own son, who because of that set up his own business. I've told you how proud I am of him and his wife. They've both worked really hard to set up their business, and many people have done the same. It's perhaps given people that push to go in a direction that they've thought about maybe doing, but this made them do it. But people working from home, oh, this is terrible. How are we going to cope with this? But gradually they adapted. Some even began to enjoy it because it was easier. They didn't have to get up as early. They didn't have the commute. You were finding that there were less cars and things on the road. And long term, what's that going to do? As I mentioned just then, offices, I think, are going to start to, if you like, be used for something else. People are perhaps going to work just 2 or 3 days in the office and the other days at home. So it will be a split week. So they won't need the same amount of office space because people will be sharing what they call hot desking, things like that. So from a work point of view, ongoing, it actually could work very well. It gave people a little bit of a chance to, if you like, just get on with the business. I think it was, again, a member of my family who said there are less interruptions. There aren't other people coming at you and asking questions. So you can actually get on with the job at hand. Now, we do, and particularly in certain types of businesses, need the interaction of other people. So if we can get a balance between some time at home and some time in the office, wherever that might be, then it could work extremely well. So again, not all negative. What about education? Most people throw their hands up in horror and say, but it was awful. The children suffered and how dreadful, all the things they missed out on. But what about the things they actually gained? Okay, there were children who were isolated and perhaps weren't in great surroundings and didn't get the homeschooling that they really needed, but a lot did, and they've come on tremendously. People will ask how children will remember. this period. And if you think back to our own youth, what do you remember of when you were a child? I bet it's long, hot summers where the sun shone all the time and you were just out playing with your pals, and what great times you had. I think children will remember that. It's the time when they had their parents with them all the time. Parents have reacted and interacted more with their family. They're seeing each other all the time. Mummy and daddy were always there. And okay, there were times when mummy and daddy had to work, but they were about, and there were often grandparents that could help out or whatever. So from an education point of view, I know homeschooling was difficult. I did a bit of it myself, thankfully only a little. Certainly our children took the burden on, and it was a burden. They did well, but it's given us an added appreciation of teachers. And from a teacher's point of view, I think they have now got new tools that they can use. These Zoom meetings and classes and Google Classroom means that if you've got a child who's off school for a while, for whatever reason, you've now got all these tools at your disposal. Or you could maybe put part of the class to do some work on screen while you give face-to-face teaching with someone else. So it really can be, again, a very positive thing. So don't think of everything as being negative and write it off. What about hygiene? Well, I mean, we'd never worn masks. The thought of us all, sort of sanitizing our hands all the time was something very new. But look at what's happened. People are now very aware of how disease is transmitted. We are now sanitizing our hands coming into our own homes. When we're going into anywhere else, any offices, shops, buildings, anywhere at all, there is hand sanitizer available. Will we hang on to that? Will we be aware that even colds and flu can actually be cut down in transmission if we just keep up these levels of hygiene? I don't mean becoming obsessed at all, but some of them maybe we should adapt and keep for good. Then there's technology. Now, I don't know about you, but certainly I would have found life almost intolerable without technology. Having Zoom calls to keep in touch with friends and family was a godsend. It was just wonderful. And we've all had to, if you like, learn new skills. I bet a lot of you have started ordering your weekly shop online, ordering presents and things, gifts, ordering cards to send to somebody. They're all added skills that we all had to come to terms with. And most of us have actually adapted to that. Now, that's the way society was going. And there were dinosaurs amongst us that were, I'm not doing that. But now we've actually achieved that. And we've actually developed those new skills, and we should be very proud that we've done it. Technology can be extremely good. The environment, well, that has changed. Do you remember right at the beginning when it became very quiet? There was barely a car on the road. And all of a sudden people were saying, the air quality's changed. You can actually feel it, smell it, almost touch it. It was wonderfully crystal clear. These were all benefits to our environment, and people started to, again, appreciate our surroundings, like our green spaces, etc., that kind of thing. The global carbon emissions reduced by 8% in 2020. So from a global warming point of view, we've seen that it is possible to do something about global warming if we're prepared to embrace it. And now it's everywhere. We're all talking about it and we're all doing something about it. Particularly the youngsters have been marvellous at it. It's taught in schools. I think we're all going to take this on board. And if you think of it, even things like electric cars, that was something way in the future. Yes, eventually we might do that. More and more people, look in your own road, look at your neighbours, look when you're on the street. You will see people now driving. You might not hear them because they are very quiet, but you will be aware that there are more and more electric cars. And this is all going to help our environment. Charity. The nation was at its best probably in 2020. And that was in terms of charitable works, in community. We all became aware of our neighbours. We got to know our neighbours. We were all prepared to help. People started to volunteer for things, to help with charities who would never have thought of volunteering before. And they realised their sense of self-worth. It was a benefit to them. It was a benefit to the people that they were helping. So maybe we can hang on to that. We don't want to lose that lovely sense of community and the fact that we all can be strong together. What about nature? Well, it certainly changed our view, didn't it? Because we were suddenly aware of birds coming into our garden that hadn't been before, squirrels, all that kind of thing. People were out walking in nature. As I said, we began to appreciate, even living in cities, how many green spaces we had. and how much nature can impact on our lives, on our sense of well-being. It became a source of solace. And people really began to get fit. And if we go on to fitness, if you like, fitness went online. People couldn't go to their classes, they couldn't go to their gym. So what we did was we looked up videos and things that were online. Some people went to Zoom classes online, and a lot, things like Pilates and things like trying to think what I would call the quieter ones. They became, if you like, very easy to do online. And I know many Pilates teachers who have decided to stay in the online teaching method because they found it so much easier. People found different things to do, different ways of exercising together. All of a sudden, people were exercising as a family. It used to be, do you remember, so mum would go off and do this, dad would do that, and the kids would go and play or whatever. And now we're having fun doing it together. Remember all those walks we went on? How many families did you see out and about? Having a great time, talking to each other, just being together. And talking of walking, there were people who had never walked in their lives, but it was the only way to get out and about. So they started doing it, and they were doing it every day. And because it's now become a habit, people will continue to do it. So that's absolutely wonderful. Hopefully we can keep that in our lives. Overall, despite the fact that many people have suffered during the pandemic, we know, and that suffering still goes on. There are many, many negatives. I am not trying in any way to undermine those or underplay them. But many people have had a chance to perhaps slow down because pressures were off. They didn't have to be anywhere at a particular time. We've been able to reflect on our lives and perhaps our futures, where we would like to see ourselves, that kind of thing. Have we slowed down? Have we been able to relax? Have we started to listen to our bodies? That can only be good. We've had the time to become different people. We've actually become, hopefully, less materialistic because we're appreciating what we've got, what we actually need. Do we really need to get another new whatever? That's got to be a good thing for us, for the environment, for everything. So hopefully all of these changes, good or bad, have taught us something. And I hope that we've got the wisdom to see what are the good things, the benefits, hold on to those, and then have the ability to be flexible enough to take that on board and run with it and change our world. We are looking at a chance to develop a whole new and much improved future. I hope that's the way it goes. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.